everyone. Thank you so much for clicking on this review. The fact that you are willing to sacrifice a few minutes out of your day to consume my content really does mean the world to me. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It would mean the absolute most. And guys, today we're going to be talking about Fantastic Beasts, The Secret of Dumbledore. And I have to say, this movie surprised me. I have a complicated relationship with Harry Potter. I'm definitely not one of the, a massive fan of the franchise. In fact, many people would actually say that it's a franchise I don't necessarily even enjoy. And I was exposed to it as a young age when all of my friends were watching it. I watched the first film and I thought the first film was good, but watching on, the series just lost me. And I feel like after watching this movie, this was the first movie in a very, very long time that actually gave me some form or semblance of enjoyment. And that was why it surprised me. I actually found myself enjoying elements of this film. But is it perfect? I still don't think so. And maybe there's just that part of me that's incompatible with the Harry Potter franchise. But ultimately, this is my favorite movie of the entire franchise. I think that this was a great movie in regards to performances. I think the performances were good across the board, but I'll dive into that deeper later. I thought the special effects were brilliant. They were visually stunning, but I'll break them down a little bit more just now as well, because I do have a few negatives about them as well. But I feel like that's a lot of this movie with me. There are elements that I really, really enjoyed, but there's parts of those elements that I can just not separate from a form of negative. And I think let's just start off this movie from the very, very beginning. Of course, this is the third film in this series, which acts as a prequel series to the Harry Potter main series. And so as someone that didn't very closely follow the Harry Potter story, and of course, as an extension of that, the Fantastic Beasts story, jumping into this one, while I had a rough idea what was happening, I can imagine that it's very overwhelming for a new viewer. What is very tricky all the time when it comes to a sequel is you have to also remember, as many fans as you have that will be watching this movie, the sequel, knowing the first film, you're going to have a lot of viewers that watch the sequel before they watch the first film. And there's a lot of movies that actually manage to balance this quite well. I mean, Star Wars comes to mind, Terminator comes to mind, Transformers. These are all movies where it's probably beneficial if you watch the first movie first, but the second movie does do a good job in its first act of introducing you to the characters and the primary storyline so that new viewers don't feel lost in the shuffle. That's something that this movie unfortunately did not do well at all. Ultimately, this movie starts with Dumbledore and Grindelwald. And Grindelwald is now Mads Mikkelsen in this movie, and that's something they never actually address. That might be a spoiler, but they never truly address why Grindelwald's appearance is different. And so if you're not following the news as to why everything happened with Johnny Depp, that's even for a fan's point of view going to seem somewhat confusing because you're not going to understand who this new character is. But ultimately we're thrust into the story with two characters just having this insanely deep dialogue. And then we're introduced to all of these other supporting characters and the rest of the protagonists as if we're automatically supposed to know who they are. And if you have watched the first films, then you will understand who they are and what their role is. But as a new viewer, it's going to be very difficult for you to remember this entire just flood of information. But then again, the sequel does what the sequel has to do, and that is continue the story. So if you are coming into the third film in a series without any knowledge, you have to expect that it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to follow everything. But even after watching this movie, going into the second and the third acts, it still feels incredibly convoluted. There are still entire sequences that take place where I'm sitting there going, cool. Either this felt incredibly anticlimactic or it feels like it was a little bit too convoluted for its own good. Again, especially when it comes to the visuals, absolutely stunning, spectacular. But I feel like in many ways they lack substance. We see these incredibly powerful spells taking place, but in many times these spells feel like they're hit with no impact. And again, that's just my personal preference because I can tell you right now, I left that cinema and so many people were talking about how great they thought the action was. But for me, it just felt impactless. And I feel like, again, this movie is definitely going to separate people down the middle. You're going to have people that love it and people that hate it. And what is really, really cool is I actually interviewed a bunch of people after watching this movie. You'll be able to find the link down in the description below, or this little eye that's just appeared. And you'll see a bunch of Harry Potter fans talking about why they enjoyed the movie. So you can also check out that fan reaction. But yes, a lot of the action sequences felt incredibly anticlimactic to me. They just ended too suddenly, too abruptly, without any stakes being, ceased, without any actual conclusion, or they felt impactless. And then moving on from that, we have the performances, which we have Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen, two fantastic actors, beyond talented. And I've watched tons of their movies where I've been blown away by their performances. And a lot of people describe their performances in this movie as nuanced. And I can see why they would say that, but for me, it felt a little bit just too one note from both characters. These characters are ultimately the main characters of the movies. We have the primary antagonist and the primary protagonist. And their relationship is incredibly multifaceted and layered. And while the actors seem to be giving a nuanced performance, for me, a lot of it also just felt flat. There were some incredibly emotional scenes taking place that felt like they lacked emotion. And then this is probably my big nitpick. This is something that I found myself struggling with in regards to this movie, and it's arguably one of the biggest reasons I've never been able to enjoy any of the Harry Potter films. But it is very easily something that you can just nitpick away. If you're a true fan of the entire Harry Potter franchise, then what I'm about to say really doesn't hold any weight over you because you've made up your mind. But if there's one thing I've never enjoyed about the Harry Potter films in particular, and how they handle magic, is power scaling. Because characters can feel impossibly powerful in one scene and then feel completely powerless in another. We can see them pull off some incredibly amazing feats, and then in another scene, they get bested by a complete simpleton. And that's always been a frustration of mine, because when it comes to magic, just think of things like Legend of the Seeker, because I feel like that also struggled a little bit with power scaling. But if you think of things like Lord of the Rings, you can understand that the power scaling was always consistent. And I'm not saying I expect something like Dragon Ball Z, where you have like scalers on your eyes and you can check everyone's power points and whatnot. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just want to feel like if I see a character, I'm able to understand how powerful they are and then see what they're able to stand up against, you know what I mean? But ultimately, look, at the end of the day, this has been a lot of me just complaining pointlessly, but I have to say at the end of the day, I did enjoy the film. I feel like there was a lot of plot points, especially in the third act, that were incredibly rushed. But on the whole, I still found myself enjoying it more than I thought I would. Again, I mentioned the visuals were spectacular. The performances were great. I know I did go a bit hard on Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen, but they still did give high quality performances. They just weren't to my taste. So yes, guys, that's just me, a muggle. That's my opinion on this movie. Again, as I said, it's my favorite in the Harry Potter franchise. But again, I don't have the fondest relationship with Harry Potter. So take what I say with a grain of salt. If you want some proper fans' opinions, then click on this little eye that has appeared in the past, or go down to the description, find that link, and you can check out the fans' reactions, because they had some incredibly positive things to say about this movie. They loved it. They're often, if I remember correctly, said that this was by far the best in the entire Fantastic Beasts franchise. So I definitely agree with them in that regard. But yes, guys, thank you so much for watching this review. It really does mean the world to me. If you haven't yet, please give this video a like and subscribe. Or if you completely disagree with me, go down into the comment section below and let me know. But guys, you are the best. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching that video. I really do appreciate it. If you did and you want to watch more of my content, then quickly subscribe. But I want to let you know about the podcast that I'm busy running over on Zapcast's YouTube channel. If you are a content creator wanting to learn, then check out the ABCs of content creation. And if you are a nerd like me, check out the weekly Fundamentals.